Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the January 4th, 2021 Clovis City Council meeting. Given the current shelter-in-place order covering the state of California and the social distancing guidelines issued by the federal, state, and local authorities, the city is implementing changes to participate in council meetings. The council chambers will be open to the public, but we will be implementing social distancing policies and will limit the number of people who may be in council chambers. The meeting will be webcast and accessed at the link shown. Members of the public are encouraged to participate in the meetings by accessing the webcast at the link shown, providing written comment at the same website, participating by phone, or coming to the City Council meeting in person. We are practicing social distancing and can only accommodate a maximum of 16 people at one time. I will call the meeting to order and ask Councilmember Whalen to lead us in a flag salute.
Please join me in pledging allegiance to our flag and our republic. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Bob. And if the clerk will call roll, please.
Councilmember Ash.
Here.
Here.
Councilmember Mwanatua.
Here.
Councilmember Whalen.
here.
Mayor Bessinger.
Here. Now we come to the public comments portion of the meeting. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the City Council on any matter within the Council's jurisdiction, which is not listed on the agenda. In order for everyone to be heard, please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less, or 10 minutes per topic. Anyone wishing to be placed on the agenda for a specific topic should contact the City Manager's office and submit correspondence at least 10 days prior to the desired date of appearance. Does anyone in chambers wish to address the Council on any item that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, do we have anybody online?
None.
Okay. And other than the one correspondence, did we have anything else?
No, sir, just the one from Jeff Adolph. That's it. You have it in the dais in front of you.
Great. Thank you. I'll close public comments. In regards to ordinances and resolutions, with respect to the approval of resolutions and ordinances, the reading of the title shall be deemed a motion to waive a reading of the complete resolution or ordinance unless there is a request by a council member that the resolution or ordinance be read in full. Further reading of the resolution or ordinance shall be deemed waived by the unanimous consent of the council. Then we come to the consent calendars. Items considered routine in nature are placed upon the consent calendar. They will all be considered and voted upon in one vote as one item unless a council member requests individual consideration. A council member's vote in favor of the consent calendar is considered and recorded as a separate affirmative vote in favor of each action listed. Motions in favor of adoption of the consent calendar are deemed to include a motion to waive the reading of any ordinance or resolution on the consent calendar. For adoption of ordinances, only those that have received a unanimous vote upon introduction are considered consent items. We've had a request to pull item number 3 because of a conflict. Or any other member of the public or any member of the council wish to pull any item other than item 3? Seeing none, I'll open this to the public. Any member of the public in chambers wish to pull any item?
Let me recuse myself. At this time, I'm going to recuse myself from item 3. I have a financial interest in a property that's within the business organization of Old Town's jurisdiction, and therefore I cannot participate in hearing item 3. That's why I wanted it pulled.
Okay. Any member of the public wish to address the council on any item on the consent calendar? I see none in chambers. Do we have anybody on the internet?
No.
Mr. Clerk, we get any correspondence?
No.
Okay. I will entertain a motion for items 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
And I'll make a motion for,
And then Jose's going to leave the room.
in our ethics training, it says you don't have to do that. I just read that. For consent items, you don't have to go. Okay, I'd like to make a motion for item number 3, the Boot first quarter report, July through September 2020.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes 4 with 1 abstention.
But wait, can we have a pause? Did the ethics training say that on a conflict, on a consent calendar, you did not have to leave the room if you stated your cause?
I believe for consent items, you can remain, yes.
Yeah,
Technically, you can remain, yes.
But for others, you cannot, but for these items. Yeah, just pay attention to that.
But it's good practice to leave.
That's right, good
yes.
job. All right, thank you.
For perception of conflict and.
Okay, in regards to public hearings, a public hearing is an open consideration within a regular or special meeting of the City Council for which special notice has been given and may be required. When a public hearing is continued, noticing of the adjourned item is required as per Government Code 54955.1. Item 8, consider approval of resolution GPA 2020-003, a request to amend the text of the general plan to incorporate language to ensure consistency with the general plan and the Fresno County Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan. City of Clovis applicant, Dave Merchant, is the presenter. Before we start, I should have caught this. I'm an employee of the City of Fresno at the airport. I don't know that there's a conflict here.
You've got no financial interest in what's taking place tonight. It's just a general cleanup item, is my understanding, so. Yeah.
Other than the other than the money the shares of SkyWest I just bought, but that's okay. I'm sorry. Dave? That's right. That's right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, as you noted, this is a request for a general plan amendment to consider airport land use compatibility. The specific project is a text amendment to the general plan proposed by the city, specifically addressing policy 3.11, airport land use compatibility. Its purpose is to ensure consistency between the general plan and the airport land use compatibility plan. And that's particularly important because not only is this a good idea, but it's also required by the California Public Utility Code. The Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan is a standalone plan that's prepared and adopted by the Fresno County Airport Land Use Commission, which I'll probably end up calling the ALUC by the time we're done here this evening. The purpose is to address compatibility of uses and facilities in the vicinity of airports, and specifically to look at issues including noise, safety, and airport operational integrity. The last update to the compatibility plan was adopted in 2018. And that update triggered a consistency review by the city. A positive consistency determination will eliminate the need to submit individual projects to the ALUC for their review, which is where we are at present. For each airport covered by the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan, there is an airport influence area that's established. The airport influence area, or the AIA, it's kind of like the planning area for each airport. That's the area that's potentially affected by noise, safety, overflight issues, and so forth. A portion of the city of Clovis is located within the airport influence area for the Fresno Yosemite International Airport. So that's the AIA, for the FYI, if you're into acronyms. And then there are safety zones that are established to define compatibility criteria and policies within the airport influence area. Noise contours are provided within each airport influence area to show variations in noise exposure from airport and aircraft operations. So essentially what those airport contours or those noise contours show is that noise is heaviest directly around the airport, and that it's less so the further away you get from the airport. You don't necessarily have to be an airport scientist, so to speak, or a rocket scientist to figure that one out. It's pretty basic. So here's a blow up of the airport influence area for the Fresno Yosemite International, at least the core of the AIA. You can see here from this graphic that the city of Clovis, southwestern boundary of the city limits, falls within at least a portion of the AIA. And all of that purplish area is within the traffic pattern zone or safety zone 6. The criteria or the characteristics of safety zone 6 are that it's got a low aircraft accident risk, the least restrictive compatibility criteria for these various safety zones. There's no limit on residential density, and the non-residential intensity, so that would be for like commercial and industrial uses, is limited to 300 persons per acre, which again is about the most you can put in any safety zone around the airport. However, outdoor stadiums and similar high-intensity uses are prohibited, and in terms of height, you have to exceed 100 feet in height before really any concern is generated based on height alone. So when the consistency issue is identified as being required, there are really three groups of questions that are under consideration. One is, are there any direct conflicts with residential density, non-residential intensity, or prohibited uses? The second, are residential noise criteria in the general plan consistent with the noise compatibility criteria in a compatibility plan? And finally, are policies in place to address compatibility and related issues as specified in that compatibility plan? So there's three groups of questions that we looked at. We did a pretty exhaustive evaluation of these issues, and here's what we came up with in terms of conclusions. There are no direct conflicts identified between the city's general plan and the compatibility plan, but there are several compatibility criteria that are not directly referenced or clearly referenced in the general plan, and the absence of clear policy requirements could potentially lead to incompatible uses or a lack of compliance with airport land use compatibility plan policies as new projects are approved. Therefore, General Plan Policy 3.11 should be amended to clearly reference the applicable compatibility criteria in the airport land use compatibility plan. Now, the reason why we're kind of identifying this as Scott described earlier as a cleanup action is because today the general plan requires conformance or compliance with the airport land use compatibility plan. What's missing or absent are all of the details that could be put in to make sure that there are no oversights. And it was safest to go through the process to add those specific criteria into the policy to make sure we got full consistency and we didn't have any problems down the road. So the specific amendments that are recommended are on your screen right now. We would prohibit non-residential projects exceeding 300 persons per acre. Stadiums and similar high-intensity uses would be prohibited. We would review projects to avoid or prohibit hazards to flight as defined. We would also incorporate non-conforming use language for the compatibility plan. Projects exceeding 100 feet in height, which are really, we're talking about cell towers, would be referred to the Airport Land Use Commission for their determination. Airport disclosure notices, those are really real estate disclosure notices, would be provided. And then the city would comply with the public utility code requirements to submit projects to the ALUC going forward. That's a mandatory submittal for projects even after this point. Things like general plan amendments that are within that AIA would still need to go to the ALUC. The Planning Commission considered this project at their October 22nd meeting. There was a little bit of a discussion regarding airport noise, but there was no public testimony, and the Commission voted unanimously in support of the General Plan Amendment. This project also went to the Airport Land Use Commission for their consideration on December 7th. There were no questions or public testimony. The Commission was very appreciative of our analysis, and they voted unanimously to find the general plan consistent with the compatibility plan with the amendments that are proposed this evening. As such, staff recommends that the council adopt a resolution approving GPA 2020-003 as it's presented. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions for staff from council?
David, can you just put up Zone 6 again, please?
The map or the...
Yeah, the map. Okay. So all that that's within the purple is Zone 6?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. I've got no questions on that.
Any other questions?
I had just one question. In terms of stadiums, what role does Clovis Unified, do they comment, did they provide any input or comment on this at all?
No. I mean, the short answer is that we didn't receive any comments in response to the notices that have been published. All of the school district projects that are outside of the city's control go through their own environmental review process, which includes consideration of the airport land use. At this point, I don't think that there are sites that are large enough to accommodate schools that are left to be undeveloped. There are only a couple of sites that have any possibility of being interesting, so to speak, under the criteria. Those are industrial sites, and they're already really entitled. Most recently, the Clovis and Dakota project that was rezoned in the last couple of months before the council. So I don't really know that it's practically that a stadium could or would be even proposed without a major redevelopment project within the area.
The new Clovis Unified campuses or something, but I can't see that far in terms of where they might be. And I have a really silly question. What's a non-residential use of 300 people or more per acre?
Yeah, that's a good question.
What is that? Like a packing shed? I don't even know what that is. What is that? Like what?
I haven't seen one yet, so I'm not sure that I'm the
A prison.
A prison? Well, that's
It's
kind of
a very
but yeah.
a very densely occupied office building, a multi-story office building potentially. Maybe a call center, depending on how it's organized. I looked at our industrial land use designation and kind of compared it to likely development scenarios, and we didn't approach under the building code the occupancies that would hit that number. So we were less sort of concerned about it.
As a tall office building, I suppose, on an acre of land that was really, really, really tall.
Right.
Okay. I was just trying to think of what one might be, and I couldn't come up with it, but those are possible.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Jose?
The 100 feet requirement or limitation in that hole there. So, like cell, that shouldn't impact cellular communication whatsoever with people living in that southwestern portion of our town.
So communication towers, if they're proposed in that area, would require a review by the Airport Land Use Commission, but they wouldn't necessarily be excluded. So there was a period back when cell towers were not so pervasive, where communities were putting flashing beacons on cell towers, and as towers became more pervasive, I think local agencies pulled away from that and began to understand a little more clearly, working with airports and airport land use commissions, when additional safety requirements or safety measures were necessary and appropriate. I think that's a possibility when and if we got communication towers that were in this area, that it's possible that the FAA criteria might apply the need for beacons or certain design measures, or potentially, there might be a prohibition if a tower got close enough to the airport or to a runway path that came into consideration. But at this point, our policy would simply require the referral for review and not necessarily a prohibition.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, I'll open this to the public. Any member of the public in chambers wish to address the council on this item? Seeing no members of the public in chambers, we have anybody online?
No.
I'm sorry, that was a no? Okay. Mr. Clerk, are we getting any correspondence on this?
No.
So I will close public comment and come back to council for discussion or for action.
I'll make a motion to amend the text of the general plan.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Item 9 is consider approval of a resolution, adoption of a resolution amending the 2019-2020 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan, and consider approval of a resolution amending the 2020-2021 Housing and Community Development budget to increase funds by $100,000. Andy is our presenter. Andy.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. This evening, we are asking you to consider increasing funding for our emergency housing payments program. This is a quick update of where we're at. We got an additional allocation of CDBG funds through the Federal CARES Act last April or May, and those funds amounted to a little over $1 million, and we allocated funding to a seniors meals program and an emergency housing payment program. You can see the allocation amounts on the screen, about $350,000 and $850,000 for both. A little update on the senior meals program. That meal program participated, 763 seniors participated in that program. We served over 20,000 meals through that program, and the program wound down in December as we ran out of funds. It was popular, needed, and we saw interest waning by the restaurants and the participants as time went on, but it was a great effort from our team on that. The emergency housing payment program, we've continued to see increased demand, and that is why we're back to you tonight. The program budget currently is $847,000. We've expended $813,000. We have $34,000 in funds remaining. With that being said, we have 38 applications waiting, plus more applications coming in every day. In mid-December, when the most recent lockdowns were reinstituted, requests for assistance went through the roof. So we have to do a little bit of jumping jacks to get the funding in the right spot to meet the requirements of the Community Development Block Grant Program. In order to meet the requirements for HUD, we need to cancel a project now. The Dennis Beverly Alley reconstruction project was funded in our last CDBG cycle in the amount of $140,000. And then we would allocate $100,000 of those funds to the emergency housing payment program. And the purpose of that allocation is to get us through the month of January, maybe a little bit into early February. The federal government did pass an additional CARES Act bill that included a sizable amount of funds for emergency housing assistance. We have not been made aware of how those funds are going to be provided to cities and or to the residents that need them. We anticipate knowing more in the next 10 days or so. And we do know that it's not going to be coming through the same mechanism as this program. It's most likely going to come through similar to the CARES Act, where it came through the state and the counties. So we see this as a way to help our families that are in need to the end of January, and then to start connecting families that have further need after that to the federal program that's coming online as we know more. We would come back to you to refund the Dennis Beverly Alley reconstruction project and another infrastructure project that would get everything in the right spot, all the funding from the right years and the right locations going forward. That requires longer noticing and other requirements to meet HUD's expectations. And that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I am available.
Any questions for staff? Bob?
Yeah, I just want to put my head around this a little bit more fully as I was going through the staff report. A couple of things came to my attention. One is that previously with the Emergency Housing Assistance Program, we have used CARES Act funds, and those funds, the clearinghouse for those funds were basically our CDBG allocations. Those funds are not enough to be able to continue this program at least until February or March, when we expect to have more CARES Act funding coming in. This delaying, presumably, of the alley reconstruction project is going to allow for our emergency housing assistance program to continue without interruption. And when we get the new CARES Act funding, there will be no opportunity, presumably, to use the CARES Act funding to rebuild that alleyway. And so what we are doing here is we are moving money away from an alleyway reconstruction, it sounds like, to the emergency assistance program, housing program. And that does eliminate what that $100,000, which could have been used in a project like the alleyway. Even though this alleyway will be funded, we're losing out on $100,000 of what could be CDBG funds used in some way other than a CARES Act type of program. So that's how I put my head around it, and I just throw it out there to see if I'm understanding it correctly.
Yes, the $100,000 that we have available to us is from unspent project monies of previous years that we reconciled at the end of this budget year. We could have allocated those to any other eligible CDBG use going forward. We're recommending that we put that into the emergency housing program. Because of the years the year of funding that came from, we have to shift money around to meet HUD's requirements relative to this program. It's awkward at best. So this project, the Beverly Alley project, will get funded with CDBG funding, but we will have less CDBG money to spend going forward that we could have reallocated through our typical process in the spring.
Do we have an idea of what we're going to be saying no to as a result of saying yes to CDBG funds being reallocated in this way?
Project list hasn't been developed for the next cycle. Typically, that amount would have been added to the fund balance that was available to a wide variety of projects, which include infrastructure improvements, area-based policing, other projects that might arise during that process in the spring. So we will have less funds available. Typically, we have about $500,000 to $750,000 available to allocate through that process every spring. So this year might be on the lower end of that because of this shift.
Okay. So all right, that helps me in understanding what we're going to be voting on. Because from my perspective, the question, the CARES Act funds have a limited scope and purpose, and they can be utilized for things like the Emergency Assistance Housing Program. The CDBG funds have a broader scope and purpose, and by us saying we're going to take $100,000 from that broader scope and purpose, use it for the more narrow CARES Act types of funds, means that we are saying no to something out there. We just don't really know what that no is. And I'm not, and I guess at this point, with me not knowing what we're saying no to, it is a little bit difficult for me to vote on it, but I also understand the value of continuing this program without interruption. So that's kind of what I'm processing in my mind. So I appreciate you answering my question and helping me to understand it more fully.
Lynn?
Can you remind me what the average emergency housing grant is per family?
It's been about $3,000.
So the shift in these dollars, the $140,000? No.
No, it's $100,000, so that would be about 30 to 40 households.
Which is the number you have waiting. Is that right?
Yes.
38 waiting, it says?
We have 38 waiting. There is currently $38,000 available, so we have some money, but that would, we think, get us through till the federal program becomes available.
But the average grant is around $3,000.
Yeah, 3 to 4, plus we pay for some housing counseling services to help the families beyond just paying their rent or mortgage.
All right. Thanks, Andy.
Jose?
But all of this is due to the COVID pandemic, people not being able to work, not being able to make their rent, and needing some assistance. And the need is now, not maybe once either the pandemic subsides because of vaccination or other events. Is that why we're bringing it here now?
Yeah, the need is now. This is, in order to be eligible, you have to have pandemic-related income loss.
Okay. And how are the moratoriums on evictions, how are they going? Are they helping or?
They are helping people stay in their homes, but they are not paying back rent. So people are building up sizable obligations
So that
to their
debt,
landlord.
that is still debt that they'll owe to their landlords.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
You know, I had one more question. Can you just address the protocols we have in place in order to prevent fraud in a distribution like this?
So the way the program works, which is built to thwart fraud, a household has to come in to apply and provide us with statements from their landlord or mortgage company that they are behind. We then verify their income. The city staff verifies income, verifies eligibility relative to being a Clovis household, and we also verify that they had an income loss related to COVID. We then turn those over to the Community Housing Council. They are a HUD-approved nonprofit housing counseling agency, and they engage with either the landlord or the mortgage company to negotiate a buy-down of up to 3 months' worth of rent and or mortgage payments. Our goal is to have potentially pay a little bit less and maybe waive some of the penalty fees to make them as whole as possible. In addition, the family receives housing counseling services, but family budget services through that process as well.
Okay, thank you.
And then we pay directly to the landlord, not to the household.
That's after the housing council has
Done their due diligence.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions? I'm glad we're doing this. I had a conversation with a local hairdresser at one point. She said that this was the only program out of all the ones she applied for that actually paid off. I got an illegal haircut about 3 weeks ago, and not here in Clovis. But it was a short haircut, and he told me that he has 6 kids. He's applied for CARES Act funding and everything else, and hasn't even received acknowledgments for his applications. And he told me a story that he had pulled over. He lives in Madera. He got pulled over by a Madera County deputy like 5 days before Christmas, and he thought, oh, here we go. And the deputy came up, talked to him, went back to his car, came back up. He figures he's giving me a ticket. He hands him an envelope with a $100 bill in it from a local merchant that had given money to the sheriff's department to help people out. And he was stunned. And so, you know, if we can do the little things that we can do to keep people in the fight and get them to the other side of this, this is awesome. Any member of the public in chambers wish to address council on this item? Seeing none, we have anybody online?
None.
Ms. Clerk, we get anything?
No.
Okay, I will close public comment and come back to council for further discussion or for action.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Nice work, Andy. Now we come to the workshop for the Clovis City Council to conduct a workshop to discuss the impact on ongoing city operations during the COVID-19 state of emergency as declared by the federal government, state of California, County of Fresno, and City of Clovis, and to explore actions the city may take in response to the crisis. Luke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I want to give you some data, the usual data. However, I must tell you right now that county health has been busy, obviously, for the last half of this year. And with the holidays, I have not gotten a report from them for a couple of weeks. So I don't have Clovis-specific numbers for the last 2 weeks. So this is a graph of the number of new cases in California day over day. As you can see, the state is seeing numbers bouncing around, but fairly high. And I think we've all read that in the paper. This is the number of Fresno cases, new cases day over day. Some good news there. Hopefully it holds. You know, we hit a spike right when the rest of the state spiked up, but it is down significantly from that spike. If you look on the right here, you know, a 10% weekly change or 11.1% down week over week. So that is good news, but it is still very, very high. Again, I don't have new data. Really, only this last column is new from the last time we met 3 weeks ago. I have not received information from the county, so I really don't know where Clovis is right now, but that's the most recent data we have. Fresno County deaths day over day. You can see that we have had a couple of large spikes in the last month or 3 weeks. And this bounces around. This is much more variable, and I think it has to do with reporting and when the reports get logged and all of that too. So, but it is still a very serious situation. These are the Clovis deaths. Again, the only new number here since our last meeting is this one, which is good news. It's down significantly from where it was, but I don't really know where we are these 2 weeks. So at our next meeting, hopefully I'll have some updated information I can provide for you. This is up to date. This is Fresno County hospitalizations with the blue lines representing the confirmed and the confirmed plus suspected hospitalization COVID cases in the hospital, and the red being the ICU cases. And you can see they are very high and not necessarily declining yet. So that is really kind of what's, you know, we are in the surge, and the biggest concern right now is bed capacity and just the capacity of the medical system, the healthcare system to treat these people. The county and regional status, the state is currently reporting that we have a 56.2% adjusted rate of new cases per 100,000 population. At our last meeting 3 weeks ago, that number was 23.6%. So it has definitely worsened. 16.6 positivity. 3 weeks ago, that number was 11.3. And boy, that's a typo.
It's 18.5.
Yeah.
I saw that number today.
Yeah, 18.5. Sorry.
So that's a big improvement over 118%.
Yes, yeah. That's a typo. But I looked at that and went, boy, that really looks wrong.
We'll be careful the rest of our lives.
Sorry about that. But that number was at 16.8% last time. So those numbers are high, and the state is, you know, the county is trying to expand both testing and also just working to try to make availability for the hospitalizations. Currently reporting 0% ICU availability for the Central California region, and we remain under the stay-home order. The good news is we have started vaccinations. We are currently in phase 1A, and phase 1A is really the healthcare professionals and long-term care facilities. So some of the first people to be vaccinated were the direct exposure personnel in the hospital, both the clinical but also the direct exposure non-clinical people. Fire and other EMS people, skilled nursing and assisted living facility workers and residents will be next. Really the first two they have already done. They're planning on moving into the skilled nursing and assisted living facilities over the next couple of weeks. Now, one issue they are seeing is when they first offered it to direct exposure personnel in hospitals, to fire, EMS, not everybody took the vaccine. Some were kind of on well, let's wait and see what happens here. Some of those people now are going back and saying, okay, I want to get that vaccine now. So at the same time as the logistics, they're trying to get into the skilled nursing facility, they're having to also set it up to make sure that the direct exposure personnel in the hospitals and the other fire and EMS that didn't choose to get the vaccine can get it now. So they're dealing with those issues. And then after, according to the guidelines, all clinical health care workers that are direct contact are also in phase 1A, but they're also talking about the police department, law enforcement is actually in phase 1B, and at least at Fresno County, they're looking at trying to move those and accelerate those because really much of their job, or at times in their job, they are involved with direct contact in medical situations as well. So the current hoped-for schedule is to do the skilled nursing facilities and assisted living facilities over the next couple of weeks, and then get to the police department by the end of the month or thereabouts, maybe after the first of the month. So there is right now, the bottleneck is availability of the vaccine and just the logistics of transporting and scheduling the vaccine, because, you know, one of them has to be kept at -80, the other one needs to be kept at a cold temperature, but not as cold. And then once you thaw it, you have 5 hours to use up that bottle, otherwise you got to throw it away. So just the logistics of planning everything out, it is a challenge. We are nowhere near the point of when we would have just general public vaccines available. We're still trying to get through these early tiers, but we are in contact with the county as to, you know, any assistance we could help. Right now, like I said, the bottleneck being the availability of the vaccine. If and when we get to the point where the vaccine is widely available in large quantities, then I could see a bottleneck becoming just the distribution and administration of the vaccine. And there may be some creative ways to get around that. You know, one of the challenges, if we get to that point, is going to be having the medical personnel to administer the vaccines that aren't busy in the hospitals treating the people that are sick. It's going to be a challenge. They're still working on some of these details, but we are participating. I will tell you that I believe the first round of our fire department received the vaccine. They were down there last week getting vaccinated, and we are continuing to coordinate with the county as to when our police department can be vaccinated. So that concludes my information that I have to provide you. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Luke? Seeing none, I'll open this to the public. Any member of the public in chambers wish to address the council on this item? Seeing none, I will open, do we have anybody on the internet?
No.
And Mr. Clerk, we get any correspondence?
No.
Okay, I'll close public comment. Good work, Luke. At one point, you said probably the end of the month for the police department?
That's tentative at this point. That was the goal, but again, it's being complicated somewhat by one, how many more vaccine doses are coming in, and also some of those that are coming in may have to go back to some of the first, you know, tier 1A people that have changed their mind and now want the vaccine. There was a significant percentage that said, you know what, I'm gonna let my good friend over here get it and see what happens to him, and then I'll make up my mind. So then there's more people going back and getting that. So they're shooting for the end of the month. We'll have more information as the vaccine becomes available. The other issue that they have to be, you know, cautious of is, you know, the 2-dose vaccine. You know, the question arises, if you get 5,000 doses, do you go vaccinate 5,000 people and then keep your fingers crossed that the other 5,000 doses are going to get here within the 14-day or 28-day window? Or do you only vaccinate 2,500 and then and then when you get that next batch, then start vaccinating more people? So it's a huge logistical challenge. I will tell you that my understanding of the situation is that when they start talking for just general public mass vaccinations, that what they're really keeping their fingers crossed is the Johnson & Johnson 1-dose vaccination for that, rather than the 2-dose vaccinations, because they are concerned that when you start vaccinating that many people, it's going to be a challenge to make sure, okay, you know, you got it today, and then are you going to be back here between day 24 and 28? And if you don't, we wasted that one, you know, with a 2-dosage vaccine. So I think a lot of hope is being pinned on the 1-dose, but the 2-dose is, again, there's lots of it being distributed, but there's a huge demand, and it's really a slower rollout than it hoped, I think.
My nephew is with the Bureau of Prisons, and he's overseeing the regional administration of the vaccines. and he said that, you know, you thaw them and you got to use them, and you have to have people standing by for some prisoner going, I'm not doing it, and some staff member goes, I'm here. So having, I guess, some flexibility, maybe we should have some people on call just in case, but that'll be stuff that everybody figures out.
I think that's happening in hospitals. I mean,
It is, and I've heard, you know, I mean, sometimes, and things get twisted, surprisingly, but you hear about, oh, this administrator got the COVID vaccine at such and such a hospital. Well, if you track it back, it was because of just that situation. They're at the end of the day, and they've got 50 doses left, and the only other solution is to throw them away. So, you know, then they're vaccinating people. I know that I think Chief Banaski told me that when the day the firemen were down there, apparently where the vaccinations were being given is fairly close to the EMS dispatch center. So at the end of the day, they'd take whatever doses were thawed and ready to give and run over there and line them up and give them their dose, just to make sure that they're not thrown away. Because, okay, that person may not be in Tier 1 AA, but you don't want to throw away the vaccine either. So it is a challenge. It's a logistical challenge, especially when you start considering the cooling effects or the cooling needs and then just the record keeping and the medical personnel to administer it. It is a huge challenge.
and then making sure they come back for the second dose. I mean, on top of everything else.
It's easier to do with firemen and EMS
Maybe like
employees.
dispatch, you got off on Thursday, you know, it just,
Yeah.
it does get really complicated.
Is it the same ingredient in the vaccine between the first and second dose? Does anybody know, or is it like oh no, the second dose has a little different kind of,
My understanding is it's the same dose. It's
just doubling up on that same
Yes.
dose? Okay. A booster, okay, thank you.
One of the, probably the wisest people I ever met, she just passed, she was 100 years old. And she said to me, she was a Southern lady, and she said, you gotta take tarts when tarts are passing. And apparently that's just like getting your shot.
You gotta take tarts when
Okay.
tarts are passing.
Yeah,
That's probably very profound.
it was very
actually.
profound.
That's cute.
In a very Southern, at least she didn't say, bless your little heart, because I know what that means. That's right, you're correct.
This is just-
Any other questions for Luke? Okay, Luke, do you have any, city manager comments? Okay, we'll come to council comments. Bob, any pictures for us?
No, I don't have any pictures for you, because I just wanted to express my appreciation for the work that the City of Fresno's Airport Police Department did in working out the arrest of Nathan Larson. So that was, you know, we all know you as mayor, but, you know, all of us have day jobs, and we don't often get the recognition for our public service and in our other arena. And that you guys were able to put two and two together quickly enough so that he was arrested in Denver is, I think, a tribute to your leadership at the police department there at the Fresno Airport. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate that. I played a very minimal role in that. I called and I made a nasty phone call to make things happen.
That's a big role.
Yes, something I tend to be good at. Lynn?
Just two items. One is a conversation Andy and I were having today via text on this idea of ghost kitchens. It was an article in the Bee, and I just was curious about, are there things that we might do to look at our ordinances to help it be easier to park out in front, to change the permitting restrictions, if we can encourage some of these restaurants who want to just or attract new restaurants that just want to do delivery, or help some of these businesses if they decide they want to go to that way. So I think it's an interesting idea. It's a San Francisco idea, big city idea for a year or so, but there was an article in the Bee the other day, which I thought was kind of interesting, that restaurants coming here just to do that, never intending to have anybody eat inside. So I don't know if it changes anything about permitting, but I think it'd be interesting to look that out, check that out a little bit. And Andy said he's been keeping an eye on it, so curious to know. Do you see any changes that are required in any of our ordinances at all to make that possible? Business permit fees, structure, et cetera?
So a lot of the national brands have been taking on that. So the Olive Garden, for instance, has 6 restaurants underneath their umbrella, and they've started doing delivery out of, like, say, an Olive Garden of multiple types of food brands out of that kitchen. You just don't know it. So that is happening to some degree in our market, and I don't see any need to change anything for our code for that to happen. Where I see a bigger transition happening in the future is when someone comes and wants to develop or redevelop a space into a kitchen that provides delivery from several different brands without really a storefront, where it's just delivery, and it's more of an industrial or some type of quasi-industrial use. And that's something that I've been keeping an eye on relative to our development code and where that would fit into our community going forward, because that could be a sizable employer for the city.
It would be just worth being ahead of that or being able to promote that we were available for that kind of business, or, anyway, I thought I'd not seen it in this market in that, the way the article described it, so I thought that was kind of interesting.
And the Clovis Culinary Center has been marketing itself for off hours when it's not heavily used to be host to ghost kitchen as well. So
any takers on that?
Just a few local groups, no national chains at this point, but it's definitely getting more use.
That's good. Yeah, anyway, thanks. And then just a small request from a resident in the area of Shepherd, between Peach and Minnewawa. I'll give you the address just so I don't have to say the individual's address out loud. But they're having mailbox theft outside in this neighborhood complex, including stealing the entire box. I know that's not our problem. The point was when the development was went in, they were supposed to have installed a street light over the mailbox area, and there is no street light. That may be something we could help them with. So I will give you the address offline here. But I said I would check it out for them. But stealing the entire mailbox seems fairly bold to me. Like, how do you do that? But anyway, so if we could maybe check out the street light, I'll give you the individual's name and his address. Maybe somebody can reach out, but the street light might be helpful. Thanks.
Thanks, Lynn. Vaughn? Jose?
Nothing either, just Happy New Year.
Thank you. And I'd like to join my colleagues in a Happy New Year. And hopefully 2021 is considerably better than what we've been going through. Okay, wow, an hour. We're good. We're in adjournment. Thank you.